The gravel bit into my knees as I scrambled to stand, the harsh driveway scraping into my palms. The sun was beating down, but I felt nothing but cold. My father's hand jerked around my wrist again, yanking me back before I could get up. "Don't you ever block your sister's car again," he growled, dragging me across the driveway like I was some worthless thing. I wasn't blocking her car. I had just stepped out for a moment to grab a textbook from the porch when she decided she had to leave immediately. "Dad, she's in the way again," was all it took to set him off. Before I could explain, he had grabbed me. My mom stood on the porch, arms crossed, sipping iced tea, as though nothing unusual was happening. "She wants to live here for free, taking up space," she yelled. "That trash can's finally got some use." And with that, my dad shoved me into the city's plastic trash can. The lid flew open, and I hit the inside wall, the lid slamming shut behind me with a hollow bang. The stench overwhelmed me. I tried to scramble out, but the angle was awkward and humiliating. My sister Lena stood by her car, dressed in a designer sundress, filming the whole thing with her phone. "Finally, somewhere that fits," she snickered. I was 25, with no job and no money, still applying for entry-level biochem research roles after graduating. I had been staying at my parents' house for just a few weeks while saving up for a small apartment. But each day felt like punishment for simply existing. My dad had been warm when I was younger, not loving but decent. That was before Lena turned 15. After that, everything changed. She became the center of attention, private dance lessons, trips to France. When I asked for new shoes for a lab internship, they told me, "Your sister needs that money for a summer intensive." What followed wasn't neglect, it was warfare. After the trash incident, I locked myself in the basement. The buzzing light bulb overhead mocked my silence. I wanted to scream, to cry, to lash out, but I sat there quietly simmering with rage. I didn't go upstairs for dinner. Around 11 p.m., my mom knocked on the door, not gently. "You going to stay down there and sulk or clean up that mess you left in the driveway?" she asked. When I opened the door, her face was cold. "You know what you are," she sneered, tapping the side of her glass. "A leech with a fake education. Lena's building something real. You just stink up our space." The next morning, they were gone. My dad left a note on the fridge. "Road trip with Lena. Gone for the week. Don't mess up the house." I could have used that week to leave, but where would I go? I had only $93 in my account, no job offers yet. I tried calling the one friend I had left, Cassie, but she didn't pick up. My mom had humiliated her too when she brought her poor girl vibes to the porch. I couldn't blame her. Then the text came from Lena. A photo of my suitcase sitting at the curb. "Oops, took a detour. Hope you like the new view." I ran outside. The suitcase was gone. My phone buzzed again. It was my dad. "We dropped your stuff off," he said flatly. "You'll find it at 91st Street Shelter in Ashland. Best start learning how the world works." He hung up. I stood there, barefoot on the porch, feeling the weight of my chest collapse inward. I was only 300 meters from Ashland, but they had actually done it. They left me there, without my clothes, my ID, or keys. They took everything, my laptop, my research notes, even my worn-out backpack. All I could hear was my mom's voice in my head. "You stink up our space." And something inside me broke, not with rage, but with purpose. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up straight, walked to the neighbor's house and knocked. Mrs. Talia, an elderly woman who often asked about my studies, opened the door. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Sweetheart, what happened to you?" she asked. I didn't lie. I told her everything. And do you know what she said? "Well, I think it's about time someone taught them how survival actually works." She handed me $40 and the business card of her nephew, Malik, who ran a small vintage restoration shop 2 towns over. "Call him. He owes me a favor. You're smarter than they'll ever be." I looked at the card, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like trash. I felt like something was finally beginning. The first few weeks at Malik's shop were grueling. I swept sawdust from the floors, sanded antique bedposts until my fingers bled, and hauled vintage armoires heavier than my own body. But Malik never raised his voice. He watched, listened. And when I finally handed him a reupholstered bench I had worked on for 2 days straight, he simply nodded. "You've got grit," he said. "And that's rarer than talent." He didn't know what those words meant to me. I hadn't heard anything close to praise in years. I used the tiny stipend he gave me to buy a used burner phone and one change of clothes from a thrift store. I slept on a cot in the back room, kept my head down and worked. Every night, I studied design specs and wood staining techniques like my life depended on it. Because it did. By the 3rd month, Malik handed me a client of my own. A wealthy widow who wanted her late husband's roll-top desk restored. When she saw the final result, she cried. "I haven't seen it shine like this since our wedding," she whispered, running her fingers across the polished oak. She paid in cash, more than I had made in 2 months combined. I stood in the alley behind the shop, clutching the envelope, breathing in the cold air. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. Meanwhile, my family hadn't called once. Not to check if I was okay, not to see if I needed help, not even to rub it in. I had become invisible to them, written off like bad credit, no longer of any use to their perfect little world. But I hadn't forgotten. One night, I Googled Lena. Sure enough, her Instagram was public. The latest photo showed a luxury picnic in our backyard with champagne flutes, captioned, "When dead weight finally disappears, life tastes like rose." The rage I thought I had buried came rushing back, not with chaos, but with clarity. They were celebrating my disappearance. They flaunted my abandonment. That's when I decided. I wouldn't just survive. I would eclipse them. So, I enrolled in part-time night classes at community college, working toward a 2nd degree in carpentry and design. By the 2nd year, I had opened my own Etsy shop, restoring and creating custom furniture. The response was overwhelming. Within months, I had clients across the state, interior designers, real estate stagers, even TV set decorators. My name was out there, but not the name they gave me. I went by Rue Hart. No one knew where I came from, and no one needed to. But everything changed when a familiar last name appeared in my inbox. Martha Brenton, my mother. She didn't know she was emailing me. The subject line read, "Inquiry for custom dining table urgent." She wanted a piece for a real estate gala that Lena was hosting at our old house. A fundraiser, one that needed a statement centerpiece. She wanted a designer with grit and vision. I took the job, and I doubled my usual rate. They accepted without question. On delivery day, I didn't go. I hired a driver, but I made sure to include a letter under the glass centerpiece. A letter only they would understand. It wasn't about revenge or rage, but truth. You dragged me across the driveway like I was nothing. But I turned your driveway into my launching pad. This table is the only piece of me you'll ever afford again. Ruhart. The table was intricately carved underneath, hidden messages that read, "Dead weight floats when you're made of stone." I later heard from Malik, who delivered it, that Lena nearly fainted when she read it. My mom locked herself in her room during the gala, and didn't come out. My dad stormed out of the event, yelling about traitors and ingrates in front of 30 guests. It was perfect. But I wasn't done yet. The following winter, I got a letter in the mail with no return address. Just a cheap envelope, sealed unevenly. Inside was a photo of my childhood home for sale, captioned, "Foreclosure pending." I stared at the picture. The worn shutters, the same ones I used to paint every summer while my dad shouted corrections from his lawn chair. That house had been their temple, their altar, where they sacrificed me to preserve their image. Now they were losing it. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. But something inside me felt still. A week later, Malik sat across from me at the shop, sipping tea while I sanded a walnut table. "You going to help them?" he asked quietly, like he already knew the answer. "No," I replied. "I'm going to give them one last thing to cherish." Auction day arrived, but I didn't go. Instead, I sent someone else. A young couple I had helped months earlier by restoring their storm-damaged furniture for free. They had just had a baby, kind people struggling. They went in my place. And when the gavel fell, they won. The house, my prison, was no longer in my family's name. But that wasn't the revenge. That was just the shift. The revenge? That came next. I asked the couple to wait 2 weeks before moving in. Just 2 weeks. Then, I printed invitations on fine embossed cardstock. They read, Open House Celebration. A new beginning for 27, Burwood Drive. I hand-delivered one to my parents. I hand-delivered one to Lena. I stood across the street when they arrived on the day of the open house, maybe hoping for reconciliation, an apology, or maybe even a chance to reclaim what they had lost. Instead, they were greeted by a handmade wooden sign in the lawn that read, This home was rebuilt with grace, not guilt. The young couple welcomed them with warm smiles, holding their baby. You must be here for Rue, the woman said softly, her eyes steady. She gave us everything. My father's face dropped. My mother blinked, as if waking from a dream. Lena turned red with confusion. I stepped out from behind the hedge. No makeup, no designer clothes, just overalls, my stained work gloves still on, a clipboard in hand. They froze. Why? My dad finally barked. You gave them the house after everything? After everything? I interrupted. Yes. I gave it to someone who would never use the kitchen counter to bash my face, who would never scream at me from the staircase, who would never drag me across the gravel just to prove they could. Lena stepped forward. You think this makes you better? No, I said, this makes me free. She scoffed. You could have helped us. You should have. You were our daughter. I smiled faintly. You threw your daughter in a trash can. Don't act shocked when she becomes recyclable. They left without another word, but not before I handed them one last thing. A wooden box, simple and polished, my final craft. Inside was a crushed soda can, an old photo of me in the trash, knees bloody, and a note that read, You taught me what worthlessness looks like, so I gave it back. I never saw them again. But once, maybe a year later, Lena emailed me under a different name, asking for a commission. I declined and blocked the address. Now, I build custom pieces for people who understand value, not just price. I use my name, my hands, my stories. Not for revenge anymore, but because I survived what they tried to destroy. And I made beauty from the broken wood they left behind.